I would actually like you to go into this big cheese idea.
Okay.
What is that entity?
Well, if you're going to have a system based on rules, then you obviously are going to have administrators to see that the rules are obeyed. So it's just the system of consciousness creates a virtual reality. Let's say like our virtual reality called our physical universe. So there needs to be some overview to see that things are done properly, like entities from other virtual realities don't just walk in. So the elf doesn't just walk somehow into the Sims program uninvited. See, it's not allowed. So that would create chaos to have the systems mix like that. So there's rules that say that can't be done. So those rules need to be obeyed. There are certain things that you're allowed to do and not allowed to do with your mind here. You know, we live in a reality that most people think is material, and that there isn't anything other than the material, but that's wrong. We live in a reality of mind, and the mind can do many things that materialism doesn't deal with. Most of the paranormal things are all done out of a consciousness's intuitive side. It's got its intellectual side and it has its intuitive side. And within that intuitive side, you can apply some of the logic of consciousness to gather information, to go places, to go out of body. Out of body is just a single player game. That's what they call it, a single player game. So the larger conscious system sends you a data stream. You attach yourself to that data stream, you log on basically, and now you're out of body. You're someplace else, some other reality frame, having an adventure, dealing with things that live there. And some of those things that live there may be real things with free will, and some of them may be just NPCs. But you're on that. Out of body is basically a single player game. Occasionally it can be a multiplayer game, but I know it can be a two-player game because I've done that. But I've never heard of a 3 or 4 or 5 player game, but it's meant to be a learning experience for the people who go out of body. So the big cheese is kind of the administrator, if you will, for what I call in my book N division. You know, I say there's 1, 2, 3, 4, N plus 1, You know, there's all these various subsets of virtual realities. And you think of each virtual reality as like its own little experiment. You know, how will this experiment, how will this virtual reality help entities evolve the quality of their consciousness? How will that one do it? What's the difference? Which ones are more effective? Which ones will raise the level of consciousness more quickly? So the system then can put its resources in what works best, but it can't figure out what works best unless it has a lot of different experiments going on. So a lot of these virtual realities are just different experiments with some differences in the rules to see which are more effective in doing what the system needs to do, which is lower its entropy or increase the quality of consciousness. So the big cheese is kind of an administrative role, just to see that the rules are basically obeyed, that it can also interfere a little bit with what's going on here, but it only does that in the margins, only where there's plausible deniability and enough uncertainty to allow it to happen. You know, it also can put NPCs here that can show up for a role to do something. You run into them every once in a while. My favorite one is, you know, Timmy falls in the well. You know, he's miles out of town walking with his dog Spot, and he falls into a deep hole. He can't get out of it, and he's been in that hole for a day or two, and the townspeople can't find him, and a stranger shows up and throws him a rope and pulls him up and says, "Town's that way," pats him on the rump and sends him home and disappears. Timmy never saw the stranger before. Nobody ever saw them. They're not a place where strange people can wander around alone. They're out on a kind of a desert, prairie kind of space. So the guy appears, he disappears. He was an NPC. He played his role. It wasn't Timmy's time to die in the well. So those kinds of things can happen, and the big cheese can orchestrate those sorts of things too. So an administrator that kind of looks over what's happening tries to stay hidden, because the whole point of this game is that everybody plays the game. It's a serious game. It's a game by which you evolve or de-evolve by your choices. So it wants to basically stay hidden. And that turns into a thing called the psi uncertainty principle. But you can go there if you want. You've read the book. We'll probably end up there sooner or later. But anyhow, yeah, that's the big cheese's role as a hands-off kind of administrator. It's not that the big cheese goes around playing with his pet people like they're pieces on a board. It's not like that. Free will is the best word I could say. Free will is sacred. You don't run over anybody's free will if you can help it.
Thank you.
Love is the answer. If there's one way to discover this truth that Tom Campbell, physicist and consciousness expert, has concluded, it is through your own experience. Give yourself the gift of experiencing yourself. After all, Tom has stated so many times that if it's not your experience, it's not your truth. So learn to experience with Tom's Exploring Consciousness and Everything Paranormal program, and unlock those natural abilities for yourself. Discover why love is the answer. Binaural beats included to assist you. Details are in the description below. Thank you.
I and MBT Events hope you like this video. If you do, then you should consider being a Patreon member, because Patreon members get early access to our special content. You will also be able to get your questions answered by me in special Q&A sessions, and most importantly, your contribution as a patron member will enable us to produce the content that you're looking for. So thank you.